99% of you who watch my videos aren't subscribed yet. Once we hit 1,000 subscribers, I'm planning to create some special videos for my subscribers. So if you enjoy what I'm doing and want to be part of this journey, hit that subscribe button. The year was 2567. The war between humanity and the Zabrak, a fierce and technologically advanced alien species, had ravaged the galaxy for nearly 3 decades. Whole planets had been reduced to ashes, and billions of lives had been lost on both sides. The Earth Alliance had finally managed to gain the upper hand, pushing deep into Zabrak territory. The once majestic cities of the Zabrak now lay in ruins, their towering spires shattered and their people scattered. On the desolate surface of Zabrak Prime, the capital planet of the Zabrak Empire, Captain Jenna Harper and her squad moved cautiously through the remnants of a grand city. The air was thick with dust and the acrid smell of burning metal. Buildings that had once touched the skies now lay broken, their remains casting long, jagged shadows across the scarred landscape. "Stay alert," Harper ordered, her voice crackling through the comms. "We don't know what could still be lurking around here." The squad advanced, their weapons at the ready, scanning the debris for any signs of life or enemy activity. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional distant explosion or the groaning of a collapsing structure. It was a world stripped of its vitality, a graveyard for both the Zabrak and the human soldiers who had fought here. As they approached what had once been a large public square, Harper's attention was drawn to a faint, almost imperceptible sound, a soft whimpering that cut through the otherwise lifeless surroundings. "Do you hear that?" she asked, signaling for the squad to halt. Sergeant Mark Stone frowned, his eyes narrowing as he focused on the sound. "It's coming from over there," he said, pointing toward a pile of rubble that had once been a marketplace. The team moved cautiously toward the source of the noise. Harper's heart pounded in her chest as she began to lift pieces of debris, her mind racing with possibilities. What they found beneath the twisted metal and shattered stone was the last thing any of them had expected. Curled up in a small makeshift hollow covered in dust and trembling with fear was a young Zabrak girl. She was tiny, no more than 5 years old by human standards, with pale lavender skin and large, haunting eyes that shimmered with a faint luminescence. Her head was crowned with small, delicate horns that were characteristic of her species, and her long, dark hair was matted with dust and grime. "She's just a child," Private Rachel Klein whispered, her voice tinged with shock and sadness. Harper knelt beside the girl, who recoiled at first, her eyes wide with terror. The captain slowly extended a hand, her voice soft and soothing. "It's okay," she said gently. "We're not going to hurt you." The girl hesitated, her tiny body shaking, but after a moment she reached out with a trembling hand and grasped Harper's fingers. The touch was tentative, filled with fear, but also with a glimmer of hope. "Captain, we can't just leave her here," Klein said, her eyes pleading. "I know," Harper replied, her voice firm with resolve. "We're taking her with us." Sergeant Stone shifted uncomfortably. "Captain, she's a Zabrak. We've been fighting her kind for years. How do we know she's not dangerous?" Harper looked at the girl, who was staring up at her with a mixture of fear and confusion. "She's just a child, Mark. And she's alone. We're not going to abandon her." The decision made, the team carefully wrapped the girl in a blanket and carried her back to their ship. As they ascended into the atmosphere, leaving the ruined planet behind, Harper couldn't shake the feeling that this small, fragile being in her arms was far more important than any of them could yet comprehend. Back on Earth, the girl was taken to a secure medical facility where doctors and scientists examined her. The Earth Alliance, wary of the Zabrak's reputation as formidable warriors, initially treated her with caution, but it quickly became apparent that the girl was no threat. She was severely malnourished, traumatized by the destruction she had witnessed, and utterly alone in a world that was not her own. Harper, unable to forget the way the girl had clung to her, requested permission to take her in. After much debate, the Earth Alliance reluctantly agreed. The girl, who had been given the name Zara by the medical staff, was allowed to leave the facility and begin a new life with Harper and her husband, Michael, an engineer who had worked on the Alliance's most advanced starships. Zara was silent and withdrawn when she first arrived at her new home. The Harper residence, a cozy house in a quiet part of the city, was a far cry from the cold, sterile environment of the medical facility. But it was clear that Zara was overwhelmed by everything around her. She had never seen a place like Earth, so green, so alive. The vibrant colors and sounds were a stark contrast to the barren wasteland she had known on Zabrak Prime. Harper and Michael were patient with her. They understood that she had been through unimaginable horrors and that it would take time for her to adjust. They provided her with everything she needed: clothing, food, a room of her own, but most importantly, they gave her love and security. At first, communication was difficult. Zara spoke in the Zabrak language, which was incomprehensible to the Harpers. Michael, always the inventor, took it upon himself to design a small, wearable device that could translate her words into English. With this new tool, Zara began to express herself, haltingly at first, but with increasing confidence as the days went by. The more Zara opened up, the more Harper and Michael learned about her. She told them about her family, how they had been caught in the crossfire of the war, how she had hidden when the bombs fell, and how she had wandered the ruins alone for days before the humans found her. Her stories were heartbreaking, but they also revealed a deep resilience within her. As the weeks turned into months, Zara began to come out of her shell. She grew curious about the world around her, asking endless questions about Earth and its people. Harper and Michael did their best to answer, teaching her about human culture, history, and customs. They also encouraged her to retain her Zabrak heritage, helping her practice her native language and learn about her people's traditions. The Harpers were amazed at how quickly Zara adapted. She was incredibly intelligent, picking up new concepts with ease. She attended school, where she was met with a mix of curiosity and fear from her classmates. But Zara's gentle nature and eagerness to learn won them over, and she soon made friends. Despite her outward progress, Zara still carried the weight of her past. She had nightmares about the war, waking in the middle of the night with tears streaming down her face. Harper would hold her, comforting her until she fell back asleep. It was during these quiet moments that Harper realized just how deep her love for Zara had grown. She was no longer just an alien girl she had rescued. Zara had become her daughter in every way that mattered. Michael, too, had formed a close bond with Zara. He loved to tinker with gadgets, and Zara would often join him in his workshop, watching with wide-eyed fascination as he worked. She had a natural talent for engineering, and under Michael's guidance, she began to create her own small inventions. It was clear that she had inherited the Zabrak's aptitude for technology, but she combined it with a uniquely human creativity. As Zara grew older, she became more aware of the broader conflict between humans and the Zabrak. She saw the news reports, heard the discussions, and understood that her people were still considered enemies. It troubled her deeply, but it also sparked a determination within her. Zara began to realize that her unique position, being both Zabrak by birth and human by upbringing, might give her the power to bridge the gap between the two species. Harper and Michael supported her in this realization, encouraging her to use her knowledge and skills to make a difference. They knew that Zara was destined for something greater than the ordinary life they had envisioned for her. She was a symbol of hope, a living testament to the possibility of peace between two warring worlds. And so, as Zara approached adulthood, she began to prepare herself for a future she could scarcely have imagined when she was first discovered in the ruins of her home. She knew that her journey was just beginning and that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. But with the love and support of her human parents, Zara felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. The little Zabrak girl who had been found amidst the wreckage of a dying city was now a young woman, strong and determined, with a heart that belonged to two worlds. And as she looked out at the stars, she knew that her destiny was to unite them. By the time Zara was a teenager, the war had reached a stalemate. Both sides were weary, and peace talks had stalled. Despite her young age, Zara felt a deep sense of responsibility. She knew she was unique, perhaps the only Zorian living among humans. She believed that if anyone could bridge the gap between the two species, it was her. With her parents' support, Zara approached the Earth Alliance with a bold proposal. She wanted to act as an ambassador for peace, representing both humans and Zorians in negotiations. It was a risky move, but the Alliance, desperate for a breakthrough, agreed. Zara traveled to the neutral planet where the peace talks were being held. The Zorian delegates were shocked to see one of their own among the humans. Many of them had believed that humans would never show mercy to a Zorian, let alone raise one as their own. Zara's presence was a powerful symbol that peace was possible. The negotiations were tense. Decades of mistrust and hatred could not be easily set aside. But Zara's calm demeanor and heartfelt pleas began to sway both sides. She spoke of her life on Earth, of the kindness her human parents had shown her, and of the friendships she had formed. She reminded them that both humans and Zorians had suffered greatly and that it was time to end the cycle of violence. Zara's words resonated with many of the delegates. Slowly, the negotiations began to make progress. Trust, once broken, was starting to be rebuilt. Months of negotiations finally led to a historic agreement. The war between humans and Zorians was officially declared over, and a new era of cooperation began. Zara's role in the peace process was celebrated across both worlds. She had become a symbol of hope, proof that even in the darkest times, there was a chance for reconciliation. Zara returned to Earth as a hero, but she remained humble. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy. There were still those on both sides who harbored resentment and distrust. But she also knew that change was possible, and she was determined to be a part of it. With the support of her parents, Zara founded an organization dedicated to fostering understanding between humans and Zorians. She traveled between Earth and Zorian worlds, teaching the next generation the importance of peace and cooperation. Years later, as Zara stood on a platform overlooking a gathering of humans and Zorians, she felt a deep sense of pride. The two species, once bitter enemies, were now working together to build a better future. And it had all started with a small, scared girl found in the ruins of a war-torn city. As the crowd cheered, Zara looked out at the faces of the young Zorians and humans who had never known war. She smiled, knowing that the future was bright. The war was over, but the journey toward lasting peace had just begun. And Zara, the little alien girl who had found a new home on Earth, would continue to lead the way.